Hi guys! So, today I'm going to be showing you guys how to make pop-up cards. Since Mother's Day is coming up, I'm going to be making a Mother's Day card in particular, but you could do these techniques for any type of occasion. So of course you'll need some paper. If you have some paper that is a little bit thicker, like cardstock, that works a little bit better, but really any paper will do as long as it's not like super floppy. You also need some glue. I'm using liquid glue, but the glue sticks work just as well. Of course, some scissors and some decorating supplies. Today I'm just going to be using some markers, but you can use whatever you have around. So, for the paper, you're going to need at least 2 sheets. One, which is going to be your main color, which will be the main color on the inside and most of the color on the outside. And then one that where you're going to cut a stripe out of. So I'll show that part later. But first, the one for your card, you're going to fold it hamburger style. So you're going to fold the 2 shorter edges together. So go ahead and do this. Oop. And you can see now we have a nice big card. So now we have to make this card into a pop-up card. So the first step for doing that is you're going to take your scissors, and I'm only going to do one pop-up, but you could do a few. And I'm going to make my pop-up in the middle, so you're just going to cut a little slit like that, and then another slit, and you can make these as big or small as you want. Oops. And the important part, so you can see here, my slits are uneven. You need them to be even for your pop-up to work. So I'm going to go ahead and just even these out. So now they're about even. And this little part is the part that's going to make our pop-up flap. So now you're going to go ahead and open your card up, and that little flap that you just cut out, you're going to push inside. So now if you, come on now. So now if you start squeezing together, you can see it's making a square, and you're just going to squeeze it together and make a crease right here on the outside so that it's easy to open and close. So this is now all the way closed, and you're just going to press down right here. So now when we open our card, we have a little pop-up square. So on this square, we can put whatever we want. I'm going to put a little pot of flowers since I'm doing a Mother's Day card. But we'll get to that in a sec. First things first, we have this big hole in our card now, and that just won't do. So what we're going to do is cover that hole with some more paper. So I'm going to go ahead and set our card to the side for now. And with your, it could be the same color paper, but I like doing it different colors so it gives the outside some pattern. You're just going to go ahead and fold it in half, just like you did with your first piece of paper. If I can get these to line up. And now we have like a second card, but instead what we're going to do is line up so you have a little bit at below this part is the bottom, and you're going to cut so that it's a little bit above the top part. So for mine, I'm going to cut my paper right here, and you're going to cut this part all the way across so you have a strip that is this wide, or however wide your hole is. If you did multiple holes, you're going to do this multiple times for each section. I've already forgotten how big I want this. So again, you can see here, if I did it right at the very edge, it would be right there, but I don't want it right at the very edge. I want it to have a little extra room. So you're cutting it, oh, come here. There we go. So I have a little gap here, and then I'm gonna cut it right, not right at the edge here, but up a little bit farther. So I'm gonna cut it, I think, about right there. And you're just gonna cut this straight as crossed, straight as you can. Boop. All right. So now we have our cover-up piece, just like this. If you want, which maybe I'll do, you can go ahead and cut a little bit of a design on the edges here. You don't want to go in too much, because you remember you don't want that hole to be seen. But you could do like some waves like I'm doing, or maybe some zigzags, or you could just leave it straight. All up to you. Whatever you want your card to look like. Okay, so we now have our stripe. You're gonna open it up like you would open up a card and put a little bit of glue along all of the edges. So just a little bit, you don't need a whole ton, but this is gonna help stick our stripe to cover up our hole. So there's one side. And if you're using liquid glue, you really don't want to use that much, otherwise it'll squidge out the edges. But you can see here, on this part right here, I probably used a little bit too much, but down here is just good, just perfect. So you're now going to take your pop-up card and you're going to line up that center. So this crease is lining up with the crease in your stripe. And on one side, you're just going to push it all the way down. And then you can go ahead and take your other side and push, oops, all the way down. And now, on both sides, the hole is covered up and we just have this nice stripe. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust mine a little bit. And just press down nice and firm. Boop. Okay. So now we get to work on the inside, and you can see here, you can see the yellow underneath the square. If you don't want this to be a different color, you can just use the same color on the outside. And then, so if I were to use the same green on the outside, then underneath here, it would also be the same green, of course. So let's go ahead and make our pop-up into something. I'm gonna go ahead and grab some of my paper scraps that I have. I have a nice blue that I'm going to use for the flower pot, and then I have two different yellows for flowers, and some very lime green for the stems and the leaves of my flowers. So I'm gonna go ahead and just draw a flower pot and cut it out. And then, and of course you don't have to do a flower pot, you can do whatever you want. But since I'm making a Mother's Day card, this is what I'm gonna be doing. There's a nice big flower pot there. It kind of looks like a loaf of bread. And I'm gonna go ahead and cut this out. And you can see here, you can still, ooh, come on, focus. Burp. Well, maybe. It's not really focusing, but you can see here I still have some pencil lines around the edge. I'm just going to make this the front, and then no one will see my pencil lines, and it'll just look like a flower pot. So, we got our flower pot. Now, let's cut out some stems and leaves. So stems, you just need to cut long, skinny rectangles. So we have 1, 2, I may have made that one a little bit too skinny. 3, which I think that one's a little too skinny, so let's do our actual 3, and 4. So I'm gonna have 4 flowers, and I'll also cut out some leaves. So I want my leaves to be like ovals. So a trick you can do is, if you have, I'm sure many of you have already done this trick before, but you have a little piece of paper, you can fold it in half, and then I'm going to draw half of a leaf right here, like this. So you can see here my, oh, come on, come into focus. There we go. You can see there I have half a leaf, and if I unfold it, it ends at the crease. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my scissors and cut. If you do this, you want to make sure that you're drawing so that the drawing is on the fold, not on the open ends. And I'm going to cut along what I drew. I'm sure many of you already know how to do this, but for those who don't, we're going to cut it, and I've now, this is my leaf. When I unfold it, I have a full oval little leaf that I can use. So I think I'll maybe make one more of those, and this here I may actually just use as a little bit of grass. I'll just cut along the fold here. Now I have some little grass that I can use, just like that, which actually maybe I'll just, I don't know, we'll see. I'm going to make one more leaf, and then we shall get on to our flowers. This one I'm going to make small. And of course, you don't have to do the fold method if you don't want to, but it makes it so that one side is the same as the other. So this is just my freehand leaf, and you can see that it's, the different sides are not quite the same, but that's okay because it's just a leaf. So we're going to go ahead and start gluing these on, And I'm going to go ahead and flip this over to the back, which is the side that has the pencil lines. And I'm going to take my glue and I'm gonna do all sorts of things. So first things first, I am gonna use these as little grass parts. So I'm just gonna glue the very bottom right here, and just gonna place these on the very edges. Which a little bit like that, and do the other side too. Here, and let's see how that looks from the front. So now I have some little grass in my pot. So we're now going to go ahead and add in our flowers, or at least our stems for our flowers. We're going to just take a little bit of glue, just a little dab, and you can place them however you want. You might want some that are shorter, some that are longer, whatever you feel like. So you can see, this looks pretty crazy from the back, but on the front, not quite as crazy. I have a little bit of glue right there. So I'm gonna, since I use liquid glue, I can move these around a little bit. I'm just gonna adjust them how I want, just a little bit. And now I'm gonna add in my leaves, and I think some of these so this one I want on top, so I'm gonna go ahead and take my glue, of course, and just add a little dab on the corner. Ooh, a little more than a little dab. But now from the front side, I'm just going to glue this on to one of my stems. And I'm going to put it on top of this other one. I may move it behind later. Now, one of our flowers has a little leaf, and I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other one. I think I'll put it over here. Maybe not. I decided I don't want to use that leaf. So we're just going to have one leaf and some grass. And now, while that dries, I'm going to go ahead and flip it over while it dries. Let's make some flowers. I'll show you two different types of flowers. One is kind of like a dandelion that you find outside. So in order to make the dandelion, you're going to cut a rough circle. So here, I'll go ahead and draw out a circle-ish. It doesn't need to be perfect, but you want it to be fairly circular shape. Oop, it's a little wonky, but that's okay. So you can see here, mine is a little more oval than circle, but that's fine. We're just gonna cut out our circle-ish shape. And I'm making mine pretty small, but you could make yours big as you want. And now, to make it dandelion-y, you're just gonna make lots of little cuts along the edge. And you want them to make them kind of close together, but you also want to make sure that none of them touch or go all the way through. So you can see here, I have my first three, and they're just little baby cuts, making little fringe, and you're going to do this all the way around your circle. And you don't want to go all the way through, because otherwise that will, of course, cut your circle in half. But just little baby cuts. Okay, so you can see here, maybe I have cuts all the way around, and now you're just gonna bend some forward, bend some back. You're just gonna make them puff out a little bit so they look a little more like petals. Okay, so I just have mine spread out a little bit, and now I'm gonna go ahead and glue this to one of my flowers. Wow, this is rather small, but that's okay. So just add to the back, dot of glue in the middle, a little more glue, there we go. So we're just gonna add a dot of glue and place it with the front of our pot facing. We're just gonna place it on one of our stems. And this one, I've also realized this would make a really cute little sunflower, so maybe I'll make it into a sunflower later, actually. And I'm gonna go ahead and make one more of those, and then I'll show the other type of flower. Okay, you can see my circle-ish shape, and then we're gonna go ahead and cut lines all the way down, or all the way around, I should say. And this is also a good way if you're making like a lion and a lion's mane. This is a really good way to make lion manes. Just anything that needs a little fringe. Okay, so these are now all cut, and we're just gonna bend some of them back, some of them forward, just spreading out the petals a little bit. So now it's all spread out. Flip it on its back. Add a little dot of glue. Ooh, it's a little bit too much, but that's okay. And stick it on your stem. Just gonna make sure it's good and stuck on the back. Now we have 2 flowers on our flower pot, but we're still missing 2 more. And I think I'm gonna trim these grass a little bit so they're a little more pointed on the ends. Okay. Alrighty, so we got our grass. I get those. Okay, so now let's do our second flower shape. Our second flower shape is more stereotypical flower. Just the 5-point or 5-petal, I should say. So it's just drawing the round flower, round petals, and there we go. So we have here our flower. I'm gonna go ahead and draw one more since I have one more that I need to do. And you can make your flowers, you can make it 6 petals, you can make it 3, you can make it as many as you want, make the flowers look however you want. Now I'm gonna go ahead and just cut both of these out. Here is one, as you guys shake, and we're gonna do one more. Okay, and here is flower number 2. So, and I just realized that not all of you probably have colored paper. You could totally do this with white paper and then color it beforehand and then cut it out. It's all the same. Doesn't matter, just use what you have, because the point is just making a fun card. So we're just going to attach these same way we did the others, adding a little bit of glue. Oh no, it fell off. A little bit of glue in the center, and then sticking it on. We're gonna go ahead and add some to this one, and stick it on. Alright, so here is our flower pot for now. I'm gonna go ahead and set it to the side and let the glue dry a little bit more, and then I'll do some decorating. While that dries, I'm going to show you one other pop-up method. So we have this pop-up method that it's just like a single pop-up, but there's another one that it's like a spring, and it'll spring out as you open up the card. So in order to do this one, you're going to need another piece of paper. So I'm going to go ahead and use some nice yellow paper. And you need a long skinny strip. So I'm gonna go ahead and just fold a strip, although I could totally just cut it. I'm gonna fold it first. Go ahead and cut it out. Alright, so there's one. I'm going to do two, so I'm going to cut out one more. This one I don't feel like folding, so I'm just going to cut it straight. Okay, so we have our long skinny strips now. And what you're going to do is just fold a little piece over. Oops, you probably can't even see that. So I just folded a little section over on the end, and then you're going to take the long piece and fold it back underneath so you can see there's a zigzag, and you're going to match up the edges and just press down again. So when it unfolds, you can see a little zigzag, and you're going to do this again. So the long piece, you're going to fold back the other way. Make sure that the crease is following up, got glue on my fingers, lining up with the others, and press down. And this doesn't need to be super exact again, but it can be, you want it to be pretty close. And you're just going to keep going with this back and forth pattern all the way down your strip of paper. So you can see here, I'm making a little zigzag. Go fold, down, down, down. You can see, whoop, when I, oh, come on, focus. When I press on this side, it springs back and forth. So, keep going. So you can see here I have one last little bit. I'm going to go ahead and fold and press down. And I have this little extra piece. That's okay. I'm just going to leave it. If yours is a little bit longer, you could fold it as like a half part. But we now have a nice little spring. So I'm going to go ahead and set this one off to the side and do it with my second piece of paper, and then I will show you how to attach them. Okay, you can, oh, come on. You can see here again, I have this little piece. This one's a little bit longer, so I'm going to go ahead and fold it back so it has a little half. This one is, come on, much more messy than the other one I did, but that's okay, because it still springs just as much. Now we need something to go on our spring. So these are going to go like right here, and they're going to stay bunched up, and when they open the card, it's going to go boing and spring open. So, but we need something on top, unless you just want zigzags. I am going to put a couple of hearts on mine. Got some pink paper here, and I'm folding it in half. I'm doing our half fold trick again. And to do a heart, here, I'll draw it out for you. Do a heart, you're going to draw half of heart. So if you start up at the top, you're going to go up and around and then come down to a point. So that's the type of shape you're looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. And I'm doing hearts, but since I have like a flower pot, I could do maybe like some butterflies or some bees as well. It's like they're flying around. Or you could do rainbows, or I don't know, something else that just explodes. Maybe if you were making like a birthday card, you could do like some birthday presents that are just like exploding out of the card. Who knows? So I'm gonna go ahead and make one more heart for my other one. And this one I'm just gonna freehand. So we have our other heart, which is much more open and big. But we're now gonna take our hearts and glue them to one of the flat ends of your spring. So I'm going to glue it to the smaller ends so that I have a little bit more to attach to the card to. But you're just going to add a bit of glue on the top and then just press whatever you're putting on top of your spring. And I would recommend squeezing your whole spring down. I'm going to move this so it's more in the center. And just pinch together and hold for a little bit. And then go ahead and just let the glue dry all the rest of the way. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other one. We're going to add a drop of glue and our heart. I'll do it this way this time. So we're going to go and put in the center, squish down our spring, and squish, 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 squish. And we're just making sure that glue is nice and bonded and stuck together. And now we have our second one. So while those dry, I'm going to go ahead and go back to my flower pot. I'm going to go ahead and, this looks a little bit plain, so I'm going to decorate it with my markers because I feel like it. But let's add some fun in here. Whoop. Okay. So I'm going to add just some dots in the middle here. Okay, and one more add some centers. Okay, and what is in the loop? And that. And let's go purple out into that. Okay, so now that this is all decorated and the glue is pretty much all dry, we're gonna go ahead and stick it right on here. So then when it closes and opens up, there's a nice standing pot of flowers. So in order to do that, we're gonna get out our glue again. We're just gonna add some glue again to our flower pot. You could also, if you want to make sure you don't have any excess on the sides, you can add it to your square here. And just pinch it down, and I'm gonna go ahead and close my card and press down really hard to make sure that it's nice and stuck. So now we have our card. We open it up to some flowers. How lovely is that? And those are still drying. So while my heart's finished drying, I'm gonna go ahead and write a little message on my card. I'm gonna write Happy Mother's Day. So, Happy Mother's Day. And on the top, let's do, come here, do in blue. So, we have very simple I love you and Happy Mother's Day. I'm going to say my hearts are basically dry. So we're now going to add a little bit of glue to the bottommost square that you have and place them where you want them to spring up. And just, again, squish down that spring and press, 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 press. And now, you gotta be a little careful with them while the glue is still drying, but you'll have some springs. And they'll spring up out of the card. So I'm gonna go ahead and add this other one. And when you're adding in your springs, you wanna make sure, oh, come on. One, that you collapse them down right, but that anything on here doesn't get too close to your edge. Otherwise, when you close the card, either your strings will get bent out of shape or your item that you have on top of your spring will get bent. So we're just gonna go ahead and press these down, and you can see they're already trying to spring, but I'm gonna go ahead and place them down and close up our card, and we'll have this. And then when the person opens it up, it goes spring, and they have the flower with Happy Mother's Day and I love you. So that's the craft. And of course, you could do this type of pop-up card with any type of holiday. It doesn't have to be Mother's Day, but since Mother's Day is only a few weeks away, that's the one I did. I would love to see your guys' cards that you finish. Make sure you post them on the chat if you do them. So cute. And I hope you had fun with this one. All right. Bye, guys.